When I tell people that I wrote a book called InvestiDate, How to Investigate Your Date, the first question I usually get is, wow, what did somebody do to you? And the truth is, somebody did something not so great to me, but that's not really the whole story. That's not the reason why I wrote the book. It's the reason I finished the book, but it's not the reason that I started writing the book. The reason that I came up with the idea to write InvestiDate, How to Investigate Your Date, goes back about 10 years ago. I was working as a general assignment reporter and later as a crime reporter. And I found that a lot of the tools I was learning on the job would be applicable to life in general, specifically to my dating life and to the lives of my friends. And the more that I was out there in the field and the more that I was reporting and the more news that either I was covering or listening to or learning about in the news, the more that I thought that really someone should be writing something about all these tools and all this stuff. Specifically, two cases that caught my interest were Lacey Peterson out in California, who was murdered by her husband. She was pregnant at the time. And later, Natalie Holloway, I think we've all heard of the Natalie Holloway case. She went on vacation, a celebratory trip to Aruba, and never came back. And I found tools, basically a lot of internet tools that I thought people should be using and applying in their own lives that could really help protect themselves against the physical, financial, and emotional dangers of dating. That's not to say that there are only dangers of dating. There are a lot of great people out there. I'm constantly looking for them. There are a lot of great people out there. But there are also a lot of criminals out there, and I'm also trying to weed those out on a constant basis. So that's a little bit of the back end, which will bring me a little bit more into my life about a year ago. So I'll jump a little bit back into what happened. About a year ago, I was dating someone who I thought was great. And let me preface this by saying in my mid-30s, I've been around the proverbial block. I've had a few relationships, and I actually met someone who I thought was great a while back, and I planned a wedding. I had the dress, I had the cake, I had the caterers lined up, I had the whole 9 yards, a lot of deposits that I won't get back. And my parents won't get back, I should say. And they're very supportive. They told me better to cancel your wedding 1 minute before the wedding than a minute after. So I have great parents. And he was actually a really great guy, just not great for me. Not a criminal, no record, no nothing, just it didn't work out. But this new guy that I thought was perfect, he turns out he wasn't so perfect. About a year ago, he called me in a panic as I was leaving work, and he wanted to know if I was on my way to his apartment or my apartment. And I had just left the subway. I was about to enter my apartment, and I said, I'm on my way to my apartment. Why? And he said, well, if you're on your way to your apartment, if you're on your way to my apartment, I wouldn't want you waiting for hours and hours on hours while I go fix a computer for a client. He's a computer tech. He fixes computers for a living. And I said, oh, I was like, well, what's wrong with a computer that it's going to take so long for you to fix? And he's like, well, nothing, don't worry about it. I just wanted to know if you were on your way here or there. If you were on your way here, you know, you've got a key, and we're both bilingual, he's Spanish and English. And he said, mi casa es tu casa, you know, my house is your house, and that's why I gave you a key. And if you were coming here, you've got the key. And he was going on and on about this key. And that's why I gave you the key, so you could come here and you could wait. And it was this whole long-ass story about the key. And I was just like, what? And then he said, he's like, anyway, I'll call you later so we can make an appointment. And I said, make an appointment for what? And he's like, you know, an appointment so we can see each other. And I said, well, since when do we make appointments to see each other? And he said, well, you know, I mean, I'll call you tomorrow. I said, well, you're gonna call me tomorrow or you're gonna call me later? He's like, I'm gonna call you later. And I said, well, you just said you'll call me tomorrow. And he said, well, I meant I'll call you later. And I was like, fine, I'll talk to you later. So I hang up the phone and something just feels wrong. And that should have been sign number one, but you know, I'm like, well, he just got back from a trip. He's a single dad. He's frazzled. I'm halfway to my apartment, not his apartment. I don't know. So I let it go. I go out with my friends. I'm living my life. It's Friday night. And then I'm thinking, wait a minute. He just got back from a trip. It's Friday night. He's fixing a computer. It's not adding up, but I'm trying not to overread, not overanalyze, because I've been accused for some reason of overanalyzing things. I can't imagine why. Anyway, in the course of this relationship with this perfect guy, he told me that my book, this book, InvestiDate, was playing mind tricks with me. Because throughout the relationship, I thought that sometimes when I would walk by his computer screen, he would minimize Facebook. I thought that he was minimizing Facebook whenever he would hear my heels walk by. And he would say that my book was playing tricks with my head. And I thought, you know what, maybe there's validity to this. I have been working on this book now almost bordering 6 years. I've been doing a lot of research. I've been interviewing experts. There is a chance that this book is playing with my head. So I'm going to stop working on my book for a while, put it aside, and maybe just focus on my relationship because this is a great guy. He's a single dad. He's this computer tech. He's got his life all worked out, and he is a catch. And I'm going to stop working on my book for a little bit, and maybe it's playing with my head, and it's not going to play with my head anymore. I'm not going to let it get in the way of this great relationship because I'm this smart woman, and I'm not going to let it interfere. It's the stupidest thing I ever did. Anyway, so we're back at the scenario where I'm out with my friends, getting back to my apartment, realizing that it's now 2 in the morning, and I haven't heard from Mr. Fabulous, who went to go fix a computer, who had something minor wrong with it, and I shouldn't worry about it, and he was going to make an appointment sometime later to see me. And so I call his cell phone, and there's no answer. And then I'm remembering the massive speech about how his house is my house, and I have a key. And so I call his phone one more time. And I decide that, I've got a key to his apartment. He made that quite clear. And so I'm going to go to his apartment using my key. And so I let myself in using my key. And all the lights are on, which is really weird. So I get there, and he's not there. So I was really hoping that I was going to get there, and he was going to be there, and that this would be the end of the story. But he's not there. And around 4 in the morning, I call his mom. And I apologize for waking her up, and I say, something's wrong here. Your son's not home. I'm sorry for waking you up. But now I'm starting to get worried. I mean, just the other night, the car stopped when we were in it. And maybe the car broke down, I don't know. I'm calling your son's cell phone. He is not answering. He gave me this weird speech about the key, and I don't know, something's weird. And so she's like, this is really out of character. I'm coming over. So she comes over, and around 7 in the morning, she asked me to call hospital emergency rooms. So this is the first time I'm in his apartment that I get on his computer to go to Google to look up hospital emergency rooms. Now, if you live in New York City, you know that there are 1 million hospitals in the area. And so you need the internet to look them all up and find the emergency room. So she's, her English is her second language. So she asked me to call hospital emergency rooms, and she's calling his cell phone. I'm calling the ERs. So then she says, well, maybe he told one of those girls he talks with, on the internet when you're not here. And I said, what do you mean? And she's like, I said, on the chat? And she said, no, on the camera. And I'm like, oh, on Skype? And she said, yes. And I was like, well, this is a conversation for later when your son resurfaces. So I thought, okay, well, she probably meant no harm. She has no idea what she just said, so let it be. So I decided to go on Facebook, thinking maybe his phone's dying, maybe he went on. So I go on Facebook.com, but remember, I'm on his house, his computer, so his Facebook comes up, his last chat window comes up, and in it, there's a message to some woman, and you can tell by the conversation they don't know one another. And in the message, he's getting directions to her home, and he ends the message saying, anticipate my kisses. So I was crushed. And, Facebook being the point of contention in our relationship, I clicked on the inbox, and there were 36 messages from 36 women, and each one was a booty call, and each one was directions to some other woman's home, and that was just 1 month. I didn't have the heart to go back and check all the other months. I figured that 1 month was all I could take and all I needed to know. I mean, 1 woman was all I needed to know, but the 36 others were confirmation. And so I was crushed. And I packed up my things, I was getting ready to go, and his mom's like, do you know where he is? Do you know where he is? Like, she's looking overly happy that I seem to have found him. And I said, yes. And I'm like, what do I tell her? And I was like, wait a minute, why am I going to lie to her? So I said, yes, he's having sex with Miguelina. And she's like, no, I don't know that woman. I was like, you know what, that's okay, neither does he. And she said, she's like, no. Anyway, long story short, I'm packing up all my stuff, and she's taking the stuff out of the suitcase, trying to convince me to stay, and I'm putting them back in, so finally I was like, look, stop taking the stuff out of my bag. And she's convincing me to stay, making a case for her son that I don't even know, like she's talking and I'm not listening, and I'm packing everything up, and then I'm getting ready to go, and out of the corner of my eye, I see my mom, I see this new, I'm using my mom's suitcase, the only one that was empty because I had lent him for his trip, and I see this blow dryer, and it's, you know, I have really thick Latin American hair, and it was like professional grade blow dryer that I had just bought, cost me hundreds of dollars, and it's that moment where I knew that I would be okay, because I had spent like $200 on this blow dryer, and I'm trying to get the hell out of there, and I see the blow dryer, and it's like, do I see or do I go? And I just turned back, I grabbed the blow dryer, I put it in the suitcase I had just like squished everything into and left. And at the end of the day, I realized this: people who have nothing to hide, hide nothing, which was the whole theme of my book to begin with. And when I teach my workshops and the whole theme of the book, I tie it all back to journalism and my journalism training. And I had a teacher who drilled in me that, believe no one, assume nothing, and follow the money. In this case, because I'm not cracking down on prostitution, there is no money, or there should be no money, but it's believe no one. Trust is earned. Assume nothing. You have to do your homework. You are your own bodyguard. Even in cases where people are, especially online, there are websites that say they're doing criminal background checks for you, or at least they're doing the criminal sex offender checks for you. It's your responsibility to do that for yourself. There are sites you can do it for free, like criminalcheck.com or familywatchdog.us. Those are free sites. If you don't know a person's name, you can still check by zip code. You can look at people's pictures and check that they're not there, which is a great starting point. And when it comes down to the last one, which is, follow the money, it's follow the digital tracks. Make sure that you're prepared. Make sure that you're doing your own homework. And remember that people who have nothing to hide, hide nothing. Thank you.